Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry back here with you tonight for the Week 6 athlete briefing for the Team Wilpers Half Marathon Run Challenge. Very excited to be back. Appreciate everybody giving me last week off. Excited to talk about the week ahead. But before we get to the week ahead, we're going to naturally do our Week 5 review here. So, Week 5 review. We came back with our endurance run, 10 strides. So this is what I like to refer to as a bread and butter run. It's what we're coming back to reestablish our baseline off the week off. This is a nice check-in to repeat these workouts, get to see kind of how you're feeling, how you respond, touch on a little bit of striders before we get into our tougher workout of the week, which is our 45-minute half marathon pace interval. So warmed up with striders again and got into our interval section. So working half marathon pace, there's a goal pace, an aspirational goal pace. So some people had questions about pacing earlier. It's not necessarily a pace that you would go and run a race at, but this is under perfect conditions and ideal training, exactly what you're holding. So we're working this half marathon pace energy zone. We not only are getting a great workout working the sub-threshold zone, we're doing two other things. One, we're getting a lot of time starting to feel what this pace feels like. Hopefully it's settling into your body. So we have the easy periods, which not only give a bit of a recovery and a reprieve from a tough session, but then we also have to refine the pace. So hopefully you're starting to feel in your body and be able to quickly adapt to what that pace feels like and how to find it and settle in quickly, which is essential for starting the race, trying not to get overexcited, making sure you don't go out too fast early on. Big race, no. I'm sure everybody's done it at least once. And our key run number 3, our long run, our A+ run of the week, always the most important. Our range for now, 6 to 8 miles in week 5. These workouts will naturally keep extending. Just a reminder, these workouts not only are good workouts and aerobic training opportunities, but the long run, as much as anything, is an opportunity to practice nutrition, apparel, gear, accessories, shoes. This is I would refer to certainly as your dress rehearsals to get ready for that race. These endurance races are long races. There's a lot that can happen, and just those little minutiae make a big difference at the end of the day. You start to get something's rubbing funny, or you get a blister on your toe because you haven't quite tested that sock with that shoe. So it starts to be silly, but it certainly becomes more impactful over the course of a long period of time. My always reminder, to visit the website, check that box. It's always an amazing goal, and I hope everyone's chasing a 100% completion percentage. If you have missed a couple workouts, no big deal. What you're now chasing is as close to 100% of your workouts. It's a great stat at the end to then compare to other challenges, see how you're doing in trying to get as close to 100% as possible time after time after time. So go to the website, check that box. And now to our week 6 workout. So run number 1, 60-minute endurance run. No mysteries here. This is a pure volume bump. So we're trying to bring up our overall training load. And when we add volume as best as possible, we try to manage and kind of pin intensity. So I don't love to add volume and intensity simultaneously. So to do a 60-minute, let's say like intervals run, when we haven't quite done a 60-minute midweek run yet, would not be my preference. So this is a pure volume bump. We're getting up to that 60-minute effort in a midweek workout. So this is an opportunity to train aerobics, an opportunity to get a little bit more running in terms of time, in terms of miles, etc. The key to successfully adding volume without ruining your intensity is to manage the effort. So it is okay. As a matter of fact, this might be advisable to just roll the pace back a little bit, let that ego go, roll back the pace in that easy pace range. Let's remember it is a pace range as opposed to everything else as a pace target. Roll it back. The low intensity of trying to extend that time to keep the effort easy is going to allow you to transition very successfully into our more key intensity workout a little bit later in the week. But you better believe, if you've been around for a while, or you've not even since the beginning of this challenge alone, that things don't tend to go backwards. So we're kind of up here now, and this is going to be our new norm. So low intensity, nice and easy, time on feet, and then we'll get into our intensity here and our key run number 2, which is our 45-minute hill run. Not a mystery. We've done this before, so you know what to expect. We've got our 10-minute warm-up with strides. We have a 30-minute main set. And so the cool thing with this workout is you've done the hardest part of it before. So back in week 2, we did these 3-minute blocks running at this half marathon pace. So you've done the hardest part of it. All we're doing now, we're expanding the total volume of the session. We're adding a few more repetitions, especially of some of the shorter work, but you've done those big 3-minute blocks before. So we don't need to go much past 3 minutes here. We're getting all the same posterior chain activation. We're getting some work at high intensity level. We're getting the efficiency from uphill running. Now we're just getting a few more repetitions, but that hardest interval is something you already have in the bank, so no problems there. Just a reminder, when you're running these intervals outside, the timing is not quite perfect. What you are doing is taking that prescribed amount of time, whether it be 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you're running uphill, and then you're returning to your starting location. So it's going to be a little bit different, the time down. That is okay. You're running, once again, uphill for the prescribed amount of time, returning to that starting location. That's for outhill running. And finally, our key run of the week, number 3 of the week, our long run, as I said before, our A+ run, 8 to 10 miles here this week. So inevitably there was going to be a week with a bit of an uneven bump. This is the week. So once again, there is a range. So if you feel like that jump is a little bit drastic, a little bit fast, work at the low end of the range. If you feel like you can handle a bigger jump, feel free to slide up the range. This happens at every level of running. There's always a little bit of a scale based upon what was your personal life like this week? What was your work life? What was your training life? How are you feeling in the moment? Is it going to push you too far? You got to kind of start learning your body, how it feels, how it's responding, and make some of those judgment calls in the moment. But just a little bit of a progression this week. Nothing you can't handle. So each week we're stepping up bit by bit. Next week we'll be stepping up again. Some really good questions come up, and this is the exact right time to start talking about them, is for April and May racers. So I know there are a lot out there, so I'm going to address this right now, of how to start addressing the long run progression based upon your race date, if it's not that kind of last weekend of like March 18th, 19th, where this 10-week block finishes. And what I would say, as always, it depends. So it depends upon your training history, it depends upon your comfort with the mileage. So if you're a person that's run mini half marathons, maybe even marathons, etc., it's not a big deal for you to do double-digit long runs at 10+ miles. You do it often. Continue on with the high end of this track. We're going to get about to a ballpark range of between 10 and 12 miles for all athletes by the end of this 10-week block. If you feel comfortable sustaining that effort, that's great. In the 5 weeks to follow this, we're not going to take you to 20 miles. We're going to you'll end up sustaining that level and sticking around there a little bit more. If you're a less experienced athlete and this is kind of a new distance for you, sometimes getting up and sustaining that mileage too soon can be a little bit tricky. It kind of may open a possibility of a tweak, a strain, etc. We want to eliminate that. So if it feels more comfortable, this would be a great opportunity to actually start working in the lower end of your pace range. So kind of go, not pace range, your long run range. So, as we're coming into 8 to 10 right now, if 10 feels like quite a stretch, or it feels like an uncomfortable place to be, work at the low end of that range. Even if you've been following the higher guidance, and then when we make the transition from March into April with that 5-week extension, you make the final push up to the 10, 11, 12 miles, wherever you want to peak before your marathon itself. So hopefully that answers the question about just how to pivot for April and May races. Is we're at a great sustainable level right now. The midweek workouts are not going to get a whole lot longer. And so now you could sort of either choose to continue up on your trajectory or kind of choose to pin your volume there and sustain for the meantime. Week 6 challenge, getting stronger. So please share a photo or story about how you're getting stronger as we go. We'll make sure to send a little TW gear your way. So make sure to tag @TeamWhoopers, @TeamWhoopers Run Challenge, and use the hashtag TeamWhoopersHalf to participate. Don't forget that hashtag TeamWhoopersHalf. So before I get to the questions this week, a little announcement is that next week we're going to do a bit of a special edition athlete briefing. So, we've been breaking out the Winter Run Challenge. Obviously, we're here, Half Marathon Run Challenge. So next week we're going to bring everybody all in together. We're going to have kind of a different style of chat. Why? The reason is because I have a special guest coming to join us, which is another Team Wilpers coach, Rebecca Wassner. So Rebecca has been previously named the New York Roadrunner Runner of the Year. She's a 3-time winner of the New York City Triathlon, not to mention a mother of 3 and Team Wilpers coach. So Rebecca is awesome. She's going to be here to answer questions on fueling, healthy recipes, time management, stroller running, etc. She has a tremendous breadth of knowledge. She's been doing this since high school. She is a powerhouse of a woman, so I'm very, very excited to, one, listen to her myself. I'm sure you all are all very excited to stop listening to me for a change and get someone else. So I will put up a post in the kind of middle of next week, start to gather questions for Rebecca, but it'll also be nice to be all back together at 1. But we'll probably do that at 6 o'clock p.m. as opposed to 6:30 for that 1 week. So I know it's been a lot of kind of herky-jerky here with our briefing, but Rebecca kind of offered us an opportunity too good to pass up to hear her talk. So as I mentioned, I'll be very excited to hear her talk as well. And I will be here with you as well. So some questions that came up via the group this week. So I'm a true back of the pack runner. My easy pace is a walk pace, 1834 to 2011. My home running group is set up with weekly mileage and pace groups. I'm following the Team Wilpers training plan, but I'm concerned that the only time I go fast is when we have a speed workout and I'm not doing enough mileage since I run at a slower pace. So there were a couple of interesting things that struck me in this question. And so the first thing is we'll start most specific. So pace, just for the easiest math possible, let's say if it's a 20-minute mile that you're working at, a half marathon is going to be over a 4-hour race, it's going to be about 4 hours and 20 minutes. So in terms of pace, really the pace you need is easy pace. That's going to be the pace that you need to run for 4 hours and 20 minutes because that is a lengthy period of time. I mean, you're getting into marathon, ultra marathon distance territory, so you can't sustain it. We think about the definition of threshold is a maximum pace you could sustain for 1 hour, and half marathon pace is 97% of threshold, which I kind of talked a little bit earlier, is a training pace. So most people, or a lot of people, probably most people end up running their races in some combination or some pace in between their easy and their half marathon. But for a race of 4 hours, for almost all runners, you're going to be running mostly in your easy pace. So mileage, midweek we use time, weekends we use distance. The reason for that is it makes it easier for all athletes to do the same workout at the same time. So with the private athletes that I work with on a day-to-day basis, for 99% of those athletes, I do not have a midweek workout that exceeds 60 minutes of total duration, maybe 70. The reason for that, the biggest reason for that, is I work with adult athletes who have jobs, kids, personal responsibilities, travel responsibilities, etc. And it becomes very, very challenging to try to assign a 90-minute, a 2-hour workout. And so just because one athlete is slower than another athlete, especially if they're doing a similar workout, them doing a 90-minute workout versus 60-minute, they don't have more time in their schedule all of a sudden just because they need to get to a certain amount of miles. But also, and probably, and much more importantly, is for me to run, if I run 60 minutes and you run 60 minutes, I'm gonna get a little bit further than that. But the amount of effort it takes for me to run 60 minutes and you to run 60 minutes in terms of like training stress score and percentage of threshold and to run 60 minutes at the same zone is identical. So once again, I'll go further in 60 minutes, but it's the same effort as for the person who asked this question to run 60 minutes. So it would be silly of me as a coach to say, well, like, hey, I gotta go run 8 miles. You also have to run 8 miles. It's gonna take me 1 hour and it's gonna take you 2 hours. All right, that's just how it goes. Sorry, them's the bricks. It's not how it works. We wanna do the same effort level during the week, and then we do have to modify for the weekend. So the long run, because these races are mileage specific as opposed to time specific, we take that one workout and we have to really move towards that distance. And so the key is just to reduce the pace, keep it nice and easy, start to build volume and build volume and build volume and build volume. And that workout, it actually is going to be harder for a slower runner that's spending more time out there. You gotta be more thoughtful about hydration, you have to be more thoughtful about nutrition. It's gonna take ultimately more energy in terms of calories to run for a longer period of time. That is the truth. But once again, the race goal is a distance as opposed to a time. So we have to move towards that. So for my money, at least in terms of our training versus other training, is I wouldn't worry at all about trying to add speed for sure, because it's an endurance race, and the endurance zone that most behooves you and sets you up for success is in other endurance pace, aerobic training. So pretty low key. There's an absolute time and a place for more speed, and that's at the end of your race season when you're coming into your off season. It's when you really focus on getting faster. Right now we're focusing on getting to the distance. And then, the kind of second thing to finish that out is as long as you're doing these midweek workouts, they're getting that 45, 60 minute in the middle of the week, and then you're following that long run progression. For my money, you're in great shape. I wouldn't worry about adjusting, adding more speed, adding more volume to your training. What are some specific things we can do for a downhill race beside running lots of downhills, which I don't really have around where I live? So there's a big growing popularity of downhill races. There's a race company or race director, or a race company called Revel Races. It's doing some really cool things with downhill running. They're basically taking people up the side of mountains, let them run down to the bottom. So check it out. Pretty cool races, very popular. The training is very specific, however. 13.1 or 26.2 miles of downhill has a very particular demand that most traditional races do not. So what I do not recommend when preparing for downhill races is running a lot of downhill. So I know you said you don't have it available to you anyway, so no big deal. What I do recommend is to strength train like crazy, because the physical demands of it are absolutely different, although it could be a little bit faster. That's certainly why people like downhill. The wear and tear on your muscles is bigger, because the impact with the ground is bigger on every single footfall. So in strength training, the things you're going to have to really, really, really work on: quads, calves, ankles, feet, etc. Lower body, but especially those things that are going to take the brunt of punishment. The more stable your feet are, the more stable your ankles are, that's going to lead to happy knees. The more the stronger your quads are, they're going to really be able to absorb that punishment over a period of time. It's even going to come into hips and low back. The strength training component of these long downhill races is crucial. So the impact is higher, as I mentioned, on that downhill racing, but with the strength training component, you can handle it. And so why I like strength training as opposed to more downhill running? Downhill running, high impact on the body. Strength training, very low impact in terms of what we're taking up the chain. It's plenty of resistance, but low impact. So the way I would incorporate the downhill training into your running is kind of how you would use marathon pace miles or half marathon pace miles sometime to kind of have key marker long runs. So some people use B races to kind of race in part of their training trajectory. Some people will do long runs that include long sections of half marathon pace or marathon pace. And that is similar to what I would do in this scenario, as I would pick and choose your moments very strategically and go out and say, if it was a half marathon, you're going to do a 10-mile long run. It'd be a 10-mile long run with, say, 3 or 4 miles of downhill running. Or if it was a marathon, an 18-mile long run with 10 miles of downhill running at pace. So I'd practice it only a couple times. But what I would do early, and often is strength train a lot. So Stacy asked to do all my running in the afternoon because of convenience. And for the sake of preparation for the half, do I haul my lazy self out of bed early in the morning for one or more of the long runs? And if so, starting how many weeks out? And how do folks actually eat at that hour before running? So the first answer is yes, you should get out early and do these long runs. A couple of quick reasons. 1, races are early. 2, the question about pre-run nutrition before the run is reason enough. You need to figure that out well in advance of race day. Otherwise, it can sabotage your entire day right there at the start. And then probably most importantly, to be quite honest, is that the focus on these runs is so much greater in the morning than later in the afternoon. The long run in particular, I gotta be honest, most of my key midweek workouts tend to go the afternoon. It's similar, it's kind of the nature of my work schedule, that's how it works out. So I've gotten used to and very comfortable. My body clock is fine with running midweek workouts in the afternoon. But 10 times out of 10, I'm starting that long run before 8 a.m., usually before 7 a.m., especially in summertime, to get those miles in. Why? It's because the longer I'm up, the more messages ping my phone, the more emails hit, the more things I have to respond to. People are waiting on me, etc. And it gets very, very hard as that mileage increases to maintain focus for what could be 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours. If you're starting to train for longer races, you start to lose it and think about all the things you have to get back to. As opposed to if you really set yourself up, make sure you have enough time, clear your morning, you can be a lot more focused on that workout. But the pre-run fueling is going to be very, very important for race day in particular, because not only are you up and needing to eat, but you usually have a travel to the race itself. There's a corral system. So you could be up for a couple hours ultimately. You probably are up for 2, 3, or 4 hours before the race even starts first thing in the morning. So kind of having that process dialed in of getting up, knowing what you need to do to go through your morning routine and get out to your run is a crucial part of your training right now. So when to incorporate that? I think you're going to know already. It's yesterday. It's immediately. I would look at this weekend, getting out for this long run, and say it's time to start moving this thing to first thing in the morning. Start to mimic those race conditions. In terms of how to start incorporating a little bit of nutrition, is I would keep it awfully light. Something that's very, very low key, easy to digest. Kind of some plain or dry toast. Part of a banana, oatmeal, something that you're comfortable with, something that you like, and give yourself a little bit of an opportunity for digestion. Doesn't take a long time, especially with something low key like that. You can kind of go, straight into your run pretty quickly, because what you want is carbohydrates, low fat, low fiber. That's the most digestible thing. So especially if you're going to bump it up, like most people do actually, to their long runs, probably within 30 to 45 minutes of starting that run, you definitely want to shoot for those things, the most digestible food, to make sure you don't kind of ruin your experience of the long run with some stomach issues early on. Hopefully that helps a little bit. But yes, strong recommend, get out early. As I mentioned earlier with long runs, this is a dress rehearsal. Each time you go out, this is an opportunity to mimic your race day situation. Wear the clothes, practice the nutrition, practice getting up and going through your morning routine. Those are the things you want to have absolutely dialed in as you get to your race weekend. You don't want to be figuring it out in the days or even the weeks to follow. At that point, you want to be just repeating, getting reps of that routine, practicing, making sure it's perfectly dialed in. That's going to set you up for your best chance of success on race day. Well, that is all for this week. It's been a pleasure, as always, chatting. I can't wait to see you back for next week. Have a good one.